this gift. It was a gift from the universe, allowing me to step back, allowing me not to be in the day-to-day grind and to really listen to the messages coming to me. And that was for me the biggest transformation, because when I started to listen to those messages and those gifts coming, I started to hear all these amazing, creative, talented women that talked about how they started businesses and now feel really overwhelmed by the numbers. They love what they do. They're passionate about it. They're great at it, but they have no idea about the numbers. They ignore them.
Welcome to Making Change with Your Money, a podcast that highlights the stories and strategies of women who experienced a big life transition and overcame challenges as they redefined financial success for themselves. Now here's your host, certified financial planner, Laura Rotter.
So excited to have as my guest today, Ruchi Pinniger. She is the founder and CEO of Watch Her Prosper. Ruchi is a sought-after small business financial guide and mentor, an author of the small business finance advice column, Ask Ruchi. After close to 20 years in the corporate world, primarily on Wall Street, she was called to work with women to ensure they live their most prosperous lives. Ruchi and her team at Watch Her Prosper take a holistic approach to working with their clients, providing financial guidance, business advisory, bookkeeping, tax time advice, all with the twist, which I love, of spirituality and mindset. So welcome, Ruchi, to the Making Change with Your Money podcast.
Thank you so much, Laura. I'm so excited to be here and have this beautiful conversation with you and your listeners.
Me too. So I'm going to start, as I always do, with the question, what was money like in your family growing up?
Oh, that's a loaded question, just like it is probably for most people.
Yes.
Well, it's actually really interesting because for me, I grew up with a single mom. My dad passed when I was very young. So I had this very interesting relationship with money, which I didn't realize until years later. So I just kind of was out there doing my thing, going to school, having my friends. And I realized later what I saw and noticed was all of my friends and classmates having these beautiful things, like everything that was designer and fashion, like at the time in the 80s, the Jordache jeans and whatever was happening. And I remember kind of wanting all those things and thinking, oh, having all those things means happiness. Oh, they have a really good life. They have a perfect life. Because from the outside, right, everybody's life looks perfect because not everybody's vulnerable to share like you and I do. And at the time, I just remember kind of wishing for those things and thinking, oh, having those things equates to happiness. So that was my early journey. We can talk about fast forward later many years and how I realized that wasn't actually true.
Which I think that's part of maturing is recognizing, because I know you to be a woman that has accomplished and continues to accomplish a lot and is successful, and recognizing that happiness is an inside job and everything we accumulate does not necessarily add to our happiness. Ruchi, before we move on, where did you grow up and where were you in the birth order? Did you have siblings?
Oh, yeah. I was born in Denmark, actually, which is kind of a fun fact, I would say. And and we moved to Philadelphia when I was a little baby. And I have an older brother who's 4 years older. And there's two of us.
I'm curious how you being the youngest and you being a girl, how do you feel like that has influenced the choices that you've made in your life?
I think that I really enjoyed being a girl to a single mom, because that's what I saw. I got to see my mom rise, in a time in the 80s where I think women were working and things were changing from kind of the June Cleaver era. Though I feel like being in a family like I was in this small family, watching my mom succeed in business was really, she was a great role model for me, because I don't know that I would have accomplished what I did without seeing that and having her inspiration.
I love that. What did your mom do?
She worked at a bank. So she also kind of rose, she started in India as a teacher, and she was even in Denmark, was kind of still working with kids, moved here, worked her way up from the beginning. She was a teller and then continually worked her way up over many years within the bank that she worked at as an executive.
That is so impressive to hear, especially as she's raising two kids on her own.
Two kids, immigrant mom, pretty impressive lady. She's a big inspiration. And she was one of those people that she had the heart of gold, which again, when you're a kid, you don't get it. And now I look back and I was, and I can be in awe of her. She was that type of person that would literally give her shirt off her back.
I love that. And it reminds me, frankly, of my mom, who also worked full time, though she was an early childhood educator. At the end, sort of ran large school in Manhattan, the early childhood program towards the end of her career. So she was always out of the house. She was able to get home earlier, but also was a role model for me. And talking about taking shirt off her back, I have a memory of it being Thanksgiving, and she prepared a turkey. She didn't have a car. She put it in a suitcase and took the subway and the train.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
My house to bring the Thanksgiving meal over. So we're lucky, Ruchi, to have the kind of mothers who were both role models of professional success and role models of warmth and support and nurturing. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I love that. That's so well said. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Just to put that out there is beautiful.
So then how did you progress? Obviously, you had a role model of someone in finance. How did that inform choices you made and when you graduated from school?
Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing. When I was in high school, I actually wanted to be a therapist. So what I didn't share with you, which is really important, is my mom passed away when I was 15. So in fact, I didn't get to spend so much time with her. So what happened was I moved in with my wonderful, amazing uncle, who's her brother, and his wife, my wonderful aunt, and my two cousins. So we kind of, became kind of three sisters, because my brother was a little bit older at that time, was more independent, wasn't a minor anymore. So I moved in with them, started in a new school, made all these friends. And what I found was all of my friends started to come to me for advice. So I was like, oh, I like this. I really enjoy giving advice and I'm really good at it. And I thought, oh, let me be a therapist. So my family reminded me of my mother's brilliance in business and said, well, okay, you could be a therapist, but you're so good at math and all these other things. And look at your mother's success. How about giving business a try? I don't know if it was like the Indian stereotype. They're not, we're not like so much like that in my family, but I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. So I did. I ultimately studied business and then ended up going into accounting and, having that whole career, which we can talk about. And what I realized, so it was about, I studied accounting, like I said, I went to a CPA firm, went on to Wall Street for 15 years. By all accounts, a great career, right? Climbing the corporate ladder, making great money. You know how it is. The nice bonuses you get, it's very tempting, right? And having a great team, building it. But I just always felt there was something missing. I wasn't feeling satisfied. I wasn't feeling like I was making an impact that I wanted to make. And I noticed that when I was in the corporate world, the moments and the days and the times that I was most excited and happy were when I was doing something within our mentorship program, whether it was being mentored or being a mentee, or doing something with our women's network, all of those extra things that were kind of more passion projects, I'll say. And so it just, for years, I had that tug of, this doesn't feel like enough. This isn't enough. This isn't really what I'm meant to do. And finally, I had that moment of when I left and I had the opportunity to leave after trying out other roles that just, it's a whole nother bigger story we could talk about another time if you'd like. The thing is, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I hired a coach and I was that sort of type A control, like what's next, right? And she was the first person who got me to step back and kind of learn a little more about spirituality and trusting and the universe. And she reminded me of the time that I had at that moment to figure out what it is I really want was this gift. It was a gift from the universe, allowing me to step back, allowing me not to be in the day-to-day grind and to really listen to the messages coming to me. And that was for me the biggest transformation, because when I started to listen to those messages and those gifts coming, I started to hear all these amazing, creative, talented women that talked about how they started businesses and now feel really overwhelmed by the numbers. They love what they do. They're passionate about it. They're great at it, but they have no idea about the numbers. They ignore them. And I was like, oh, here's a theme. And that was beautiful. That was my aha moment of really, there's something here to listen to.
I would love to take a step back for our listeners, because I really wrote down for myself when you said, well, I wasn't making an impact. Something was off. How did that feel to you? Were you feeling that you had difficulty sleeping? Was it in your body? Like, what was happening for you that it just was clear that they weren't the right roles? Because I love that even before you met with the coach, something was happening inside.
Something absolutely was. I was feeling lost. I was feeling unfulfilled. That's what I was feeling, unfulfilled every day. Going in, doing the work. Yeah, I was good at it. Great. I had an amazing team. Thank goodness. And
team is important to you. You've said that a number of times. And you and I know that not every numbers person, not every CPA would mention team as being part of what gives them fulfillment.
Absolutely. That's true. Especially now as a CEO who's truly building a company, I realize how important it is to continually develop the team and uplift them and trust them, right? To let go of my own control and trust them. So going back to this corporate thing that you're asking about, I was just waking up not excited, unfulfilled. I even took a sabbatical. I took a 3-month sabbatical thinking, let me go out. Let me try doing these things. I did cake decorating and I thought, should I open a bakery? I did floral decorating. Should I open a florist? No joke. I did it all. I volunteered at a nonprofit. And guess what? 3 months later, I did what was comfortable. I went right back in and kept doing it. And there's probably some now science. I realize now it's fear. Fear is what holds us back, right, from really doing things. So all these years with the underlying fear of change, of not knowing. So again, a lot of the wisdom comes later. And when you're in it, you don't really feel that. So all of the people that are listening that are really feeling this pull of like, what else is out there, but then they're stopping and noticing that they're not taking action. That's literally fear, right? Because our mind is wired to keep us the same. And that's the comfort zone that we talk about. And when you try to go outside of the comfort zone, your mind is like, oh, no, wait, hold on. Come back to me. Don't change. That's what's happening physically in our body. And when people know that, I think they sort of forgive themselves and they know, oh, I'm not alone. This is a normal thing. This is actually how I'm biologically wired.
Yes. And I'm going to ask some questions about spirituality, Ruchi. Before I go there, though, I just want to acknowledge that we think spirituality, and when we're, on the right path, it's because there's no pressure, there's no anxiety. We imagine that that's what life is supposed to be. That's life when you're asleep. Actually choosing the path that scares the shit out of us as a New Yorker, that's right path and not easy to do, and certainly not easy to do without both community, which you've mentioned is important to you, and without being tied to ourselves, being able to really listen to what's going on for ourselves. So was there a way that you were brought up that made you more open to this coach who used spirituality as part of your journey?
I actually don't think so. I think that it's just in me as a human, and it didn't come out until I was an adult in my 30s. I mean, yeah, because growing up, we did a lot of religion hopping. So I think my mom, was really trying to find out. So maybe there is some underlying, openness to what's out there because, she grew up in India. So presuming like Hindu, right? We didn't talk a lot about religion, but Hindu, and then kind of came into the US. We didn't do a ton from a religious perspective growing up. We followed some customs and traditions, but we didn't like go to temple or anything. And then, we became, there were two other religions. I even was baptized as a little girl. We'd go to church and we went to a Baptist church. And then we did another, we followed another religion before she passed away. So I think maybe it was her, you're making me realize maybe it was her openness to the unknown, and maybe like that whole finding something that connects to you, right? Because to me, spirituality, for me, it is universe, it is God. I believe in that. Not everyone believes in God, not everyone believes in universe. Really, what it is the knowing and the realization that there's something bigger than you out there that's there to support you and guide you.
I know we share sort of a spiritual belief, and I would take that further to say, and perhaps there's also something inside that we can tap into, right? Because it's often our inner child that's terrified, that wants to be accepted, that wants to do the right thing. And as we mature, we can develop the inner parent that can say, sweetheart, I know you're scared. I know you're uncertain. I gotcha. It'll be a
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's right. So that is a way of healing, right? That inner child that you're talking about, because we all grow up with different, I'm going to use the word shit because you did, with different shit, right? And a lot of times when you're in it, you're not even realizing. It's later in life when you start to notice the patterns that you have. Why am I avoiding the numbers? And the thing is, it's when you start to notice the patterns that you can pay attention, and then you can go back and think about, well, what might have happened, and talk to your inner child, talk to your inner little girl and say, it's all okay, you're safe, and allow her to speak back to you as well. Have a conversation with her. So get into sort of this deep meditation and give her the comfort that it's safe, it's okay. I'm here with you. I've got you.
exactly. And that presupposes that we don't push her away, which is, I think culturally, we're like, no, my life is good. Why am I anxious? Why am I afraid? And actually inviting her into the conversation, as you said. So Ruchi, can you just give us a sense, where were you in your career? You hired the coach. How old were you? And what was that journey like?
Yeah, I had been working for 15, 20 years at that point. I had been on Wall Street for 15 and a few years before. So I had, and that sabbatical I talked about was years before that. So I just kept going. I kept going, and I got promoted again and did something really cool and fun. And then I even went into HR thinking, oh, I can help people here. And it was a terrible experience. That's a different podcast. We're going to do a different podcast about that. Okay. All right, ladies. So just if you try something different and it doesn't work, just keep trusting, because the only reason I'm here doing this work is because I tried that other thing in HR and it was awful. And I realized this isn't fulfilling me. I'm miserable here. I have no idea what I'm doing. I was crying every day at my desk. But look what happened. I got this opportunity to work with this coach, to see these, these possibilities, to hear those messages. And that's what happened. And that, I'm in my 10th year of business. So that was I was 40, right? I'm 51 now. So I was 41 when I started this business. So it's never too late. And, we don't always have to know exactly what our path is. The way the pressure is for younger people to know what they're going to do in their life. Yeah, I get it. You have to go to college, or if you choose and choose the right college for what you're doing, but that's not always the norm. We're not always on a straight path. Sometimes, life is a journey. And that's why I think when you do go through things, just remember that it's all getting you to the right path, and trust that you're going to get there.
I love that. Trust is so important. And I have a quote in another room. Every time I find a quote I like, I paste it on the wall. I'm probably going to botch it, but it says, I was raised to believe that life is like a chessboard and we plan out each move. But I've come to realize that life is a painting. Life is constantly, and you might splash some color here and splash some color there. And trust is the most important thing. And Ruchi, we both know trust is the hardest thing. How did this painting evolve from being a controller and working with numbers on Wall Street, trying HR, to where you are today and the business that you have built and continue to build?
Yeah. So I shared about those messages from all of these amazing women. One of them happened to be my best friend. And she would talk about, oh, I feel like so alone. I don't know what's going on with my numbers. And I said, oh, I have all this time now that I left corporate. Why don't we just meet? Let's get together every week or two and just tell me all your woes. And so she did. She started to, share, like, she avoided the numbers. She hadn't separated her business and personal finances. She wasn't on an accounting system. She was a little bit one of those back of the envelope type of the tax time people. She would just write down her numbers and give it to her accountant. And she hadn't raised her rates in years. So we started to meet and get together. And within 3 months, she started to feel so much more empowered. She knew what she was making, what she was spending. She raised her rates. She told me she fell in love with her business again. It was beautiful. And then she started telling everyone, oh, you need a Ruchi. You need a Ruchi. You have to meet my friend Ruchi. And I was like, wait, what? Are we doing this? So one of those women said, I need a Ruchi in my life. Let me meet her. And so I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, literally, I had no idea what I was doing, meaning I didn't know I was going to be starting a business. I was just like, okay, let's just have the conversation. So I had the conversation with my friend's friend, and she shared what was going on. She was in debt. She had so much potential, but wasn't making a lot. What was going on? And I said to her, I really believe I can help you. And she got tears in her eyes and she said, I feel like an angel sent you. And that was it for me, right? That was the aha moment of, I told you, I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to make an impact. And that was for me the way the dots connected. And I realized, oh, wait, I can help people with their numbers by helping them with their numbers. That's how I can make impact. All this this career I had and this degree that I got, I can use that. And so that was how it started. And now the funny thing is, a lot of our clients call me their financial therapist. So full circle.
I can so relate to what you're saying, in that I too have been called a financial therapist. I say I have no training in therapy, but just creating a safe space for women to talk about money, for people in general, but often it's women who are the most anxious and the most, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to deal with it. It's clear that you, Ruchi, have the financial skills, right? Again, looking at your CV and the years you spent as a controller on Wall Street, what other people skills, as you mentioned when you were younger, you thought of being a therapist, what are those other skills that you're bringing to these relationships?
Well, someone once said, an intuitive said to me once, you really hear, you don't just listen. And to me, that was so powerful. And I talked to my team about that, right? We're not just listening to what they're saying. We're going in deeper and we're hearing the things they don't even realize is going on. So really listening, creating a space for people to not feel judged. And I think that I connect really easily with people. I think that when I meet someone, I can very easily have a beautiful conversation, go deep with them. I build trust with people really easily. So that's been a really big gift because, as you know, and as you just shared, a lot of women are avoidant of money and don't feel safe with it, right? That I'm sure you've heard the stat of, right, 61% of women would rather talk about the details of their own death than talk about money.
Oh my God, I hadn't heard it put that way. No.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. And it says a lot. It says a lot. So the fact that I'm able to get in there with them and make them feel safe is really a beautiful gift that I have.
I will acknowledge that gift, Ruchi. Just sitting with you, you make me feel so comfortable. And I have to share with those who are just hearing this that you have a beautiful smile. You really put people at ease. And that is a gift that you have.
Thank you.
And I know we've talked about, both of us are drawn to spiritual practices such as astrology and tarot card reading. How is there any way that you're integrating that with the work that you're doing? Is that part of creating a safe space for these relationships?
Absolutely. I love to draw my oracle cards. I have different sets of cards. I'm actually going to create my own, I think. I love doing that with clients. A lot of times, and every client's different. So some clients come in and they're a little bit more business. Very few, because most people connect with us for different reasons. They're not as like business, right? They come in knowing we're going to have a beautiful conversation. We're going to look at numbers. Though, even for clients where I've built that relationship, they still come in nervous sometimes. So sometimes it's just not, we don't have to go right into numbers. We don't have to go right into everything that's going on. Sometimes it's like, what do you need most today? And it may be, let's just draw a card to set the tone and get the message I need to hear from the universe. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I love doing that. I do. I actually on my Instagram, I have Ruchi's Revelations, and I do a card pull every month, and I talk about it. And I love it because a lot of people, it's like you hear what you need to hear that day.
Yes. I'm a recent comer to tarot cards. It's been about a year or so. And the way I was taught, I love, which is we're not pulling a card and then reading what it means. And then it's what comes up for you. What are the colors say to you? What are the shapes say to you? It's really a Rorschach test.
Absolutely.
And I have a friend who I did this training with, and every single card she hates. Like it's threatening, it's depressing, and I'll see something completely different. Like, what are you talking about? And so it's really, you bring your own experience, which, as you said, changes every day. And I love that you're using those practices. And of course, in discerning which client it's appropriate for and which client it isn't.
Of course. And when we need it. I just have to say, though, something about the tarot, what you were just saying made me laugh, because I remember the first time in tarot that I saw the death card, I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then my friend who was teaching me was like, no, it just means the end of something. It's okay. It's good. I'm like, oh, see, it's all perspective, right? I mean, it goes back to how we are and how we give so much meaning to everything, and nothing really means anything until we give it meaning, just like these cards.
Yes, as women who deal with money, it's become so clear that people create stories about money in their heads. And part of our work is to show them the actual numbers. And the stories never go away, but to give some scaffolding is how I look at it, to create a different story. It's always, I'm sure you've had that with the women and their businesses. That I recently started to work with a client who literally didn't want to buy, like the high-end toilet paper. And because they have all these stock options from their employer that was sort of like, oh, and I have these options. Like, well, your options are worth close to $1 million. I know you haven't exercised them, and there'll be some tax implications, but you can do a lot more than buy the Charmin, but people create stories from how they grew up and ignore the numbers. So we create our reality.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I would agree. The stories and the past is still there, though I do think that we can learn and work towards reframing them and creating safety in our body. Going back to the spirituality piece, right, with the oracle cards, there's other things that are really beautiful is when you become aware of what story you're telling, right? And there's so many, and I kind of think of them as beliefs. And I do like belief homework with my clients. So if somebody's always like, I'm worried about money, there's never going to be enough, right? And that's an ongoing conversation that you keep hearing. There's never enough. There's never enough. And what I say is, when you say that, you're essentially telling the universe, don't give it to me. There's never enough. So that's the story you're telling, and that's what the reality you're creating. So I work with clients to really create a new belief around that. So in that example, it could just be, I live in an abundant universe and it's safe to let money flow to me. So it's not just a mantra, it's a way of being. So I have them write it and say it out loud, right? Those are different forms of expression. And then the biggest and most important piece is feeling it. Feeling in your body, what is it like to feel abundant? Because when you feel in your body abundance, and that means for that client, buying the Charmin if she wants the damn Charmin, right? Like you are doing those things for yourself because you are coming from an abundant place. When you're doing that, that's what you start to attract. And I'm not saying it's just about the beliefs and the mantras. I'm saying there's aligned action. I'm saying there's clarity on what you want. But I do really strongly believe, and in fact, I just had a conversation about this yesterday. I really strongly believe they go hand in hand.
It's so important. I'm thinking about, I have several affirmations, if you will, that I say. One of them that I said to myself this morning is, I am divinely guided, just to keep in mind that I'm co-creating with the universe. I'm not just pushing ahead on my own. So I am also a strong believer in using these affirmations. So Ruchi, who's your favorite client? What's your ideal client profile of who you work with?
Ooh, I love working with a woman who has big goals and someone who has not really worked with someone before, or maybe hasn't had a great experience and now is interested in a new way, and someone who is open to the spirituality, right? They don't even have had to have done spiritual work with anyone or have spiritual beliefs that they realize they have. But someone who's open to it is really fun for me. So most of our clients are service-based women. We work with men, we work with everyone. A lot of our male clients, in fact, are the spouses of our female clients who say, you need to hire Watch Her Prosper. Enough already. So, which is kind of fun. So we love to work with women who have service-based businesses, who want to go big, who want to do bigger things in the world, who have missions, who are very mission driven. That being said, we work with all that are aligned.
And how do you work with people? You talked a bit about some of the exercises you do, but is this an annual retainer? Is this a project? How do you work?
It's a monthly retainer. So we work with our clients for many, 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 many years. I've had clients since almost the beginning of the business that are still with us. And part of that, and one of the things I love is how we're going pretty deep in there, right? There is that holistic approach where the business isn't our client, the person is our client. We want that person to live that beautiful life. So we're looking at everything, their business and their personal, to the extent they hire us for that. But that is one of the things we do for many. And doing the books, because when we actually are doing the bookkeeping, we know that we're looking at good numbers. Because what we've seen come to us from others is not, I would say is not great. So we feel, we're excellent at what we do. And having those good numbers to work with are the guideline. That's the information we need to now start to set some goals and intentions and strategies. And that's the other piece, right? So there's getting into the weeds and the details of the numbers, going a little bit bigger with the strategy and what do you want to do and what support do you need, and let's do some projections and plan for some savings so you can have money to grow, for emergency fund, for taxes, for investing with Laura. And then also that spirituality and mindset is so important, because while you're doing that numbers work, there's always going to be things that will come up. And for us to be able to help our clients come out of their own head and grow in that area and allow themselves to create safety in their bodies, to feel comfortable looking at the numbers with the growth. Because, right, a lot of people, things where they may, rich people are bad, or it's not safe to make money, or, whatever the stories they have, right? Making it safe for them to charge more, to ask for more, to value themselves and what they're doing in the world.
That's very important work. And I really acknowledge that you said you're mission driven. Ruchi, where is your mission taking you? I know you are a woman with big goals and big visions.
I am a woman. What I will say is, you talked about this earlier, the whole element of surprise, right? To me, like, remarkable things can only happen in the unknown. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen to me and my company that I don't even know about right now. I'm just trusting. That being said, I'm also taking action. I'm not just sitting back like, oh, trust and everything will come. No, I'm taking aligned action to the bigger goals, right? I'm working myself on just like being more in the media and really being more of a household name and for my company to be. And in order to do that, I'm working on hiring more team, and the team that I do have, really truly elevating them and really letting go of some of the control and trusting them. And I'm working on making that safe in my own body, really trusting the team that they don't need me. I don't want them to need me so much because I want to do these other things for the company and for my work. So that's where I am on my entrepreneurial journey.
I love that part of that is empowering others, both because it's necessary for you to move forward, but it's important to empower others and not micromanage. As someone who, definitely had bosses and leaders who micromanaged and were not self-aware that people need personal responsibility to own what they're doing and to excel. So I can imagine that you must be a great person to work with and for.
Thank you.
I know you to be involved in a number of nonprofits. Are there specific causes that you're drawn to supporting?
Well, yes. I mean, I actually recently joined the executive board of Savvy Ladies, which is amazingly aligned to the work. And I've been watching them for many years. And a friend of mine is on the board, and I saw her last year. I ran into her and I was saying to her, I think it's time for me to get more involved. So excited to have just joined the board and really start to make some deeper impact there. And I've been on the board of an organization called Pajama Program. And that's also really important because a lot of what I talk about in the business is how do we redefine prosperity and see it in a new way. And to me, it is about the money, but it's also about our own self-care, right? Our spirituality, and then the relationship with people and money. So Pajama Program feels really aligned to that whole wellness and self-care because it's mission driven, and it's really about how important sleep health is. And you and I were talking about that earlier before we started recording. And so it feels really beautiful to have these different organizations that have different missions that feel aligned to me personally, and also to watch her prosper.
The pajama nonprofit you mentioned, I know it to be that they provide pajamas to kids that are in shelters. Is that correct? Has it expanded its mission?
It's expanded a lot. So it's called Pajama Program. And initially what we were doing, and we still do, was provide pajamas and books to children around the country. Now, the thing is, those pajamas and books are tools. Those are like the warm hug you need at night. But what we've expanded on is our programming around ensuring that people and caregivers understand what's really important in terms of the bedtime routine and how important sleep is, right? Because when you don't have a good night's sleep, how do you feel the next day? So we have this opportunity to go in when these kids are young to teach them directly and their caregivers about the importance of a bedtime routine and how important that is, the sleep health.
It's great. You said redefining prosperity. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that money is yet another form of energy, and its role is to circulate services and products in the world. And one of the ways that I find women can own their financial resources is by saying, the more you have, the more you can consider giving away to causes that are important to you. And that if you deny yourself by not raising your prices, by not valuing what you provide, you're denying others. So I really want to acknowledge the role money plays in our culture. And if you run away from it, you're not serving yourself and you're not serving others. And I also like to, as we get to the end of our conversation, so you've sort of set us up for the question of, Ruchi, how has your definition of success shifted from, when you started on Wall Street to now?
Yeah. Well, my definition of success is having a life filled with truly, like, this is real. It's a life filled with joy, with ease, with spaciousness, with not defining who I am just because I'm busy. When people say, how are you? Busy is not an answer. Busy's not an answer. Everyone's busy, right? So my definition of success really truly does come with the impact. And I still love money. I still love making money. I'm not going to lie. I love it. I love it. And I love what it does for me. And I love how I can join these boards and feel so abundant and be able to give without question. I love it. So, and I love that I get to pay my team. I love that I get to do more great things. I love that I get to travel with my family and have a beautiful life.
Very, very well said. As someone who came back from a ski trip last week in Colorado with, my son and his husband, and we'll be going on another ski trip with all three of my kids and their significant others. Sometimes I look back and say, oh, why did I work so many years on Wall Street? And then I say, you know what? It has given you the ability to now choose to be more mission driven and to vacation with my family. And family is one of my key values. I always think it's important to keep those values in mind as we make decisions. And I have them taped up on my wall in this office of spirituality, family, meaningful work, play, and health are my values. And of course, not every decision can be anchored to those values, but if most of our decisions can actually be anchored to what's important to us. And I think the fact that I'm sitting here with you and feel the light of your personality is because you're doing exactly that.
Thank you so much.
Ruchi, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you. It's been lovely. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I can't wait to have more conversations.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ruchi Pinniger, founder and CEO of Watch Her Prosper. And some thoughts I'm taking away from the conversation. Number 1, notice the times when you are the most excited and happy. Ruchi, with the urging of her family, followed her mother into the finance industry. She worked first for an accounting firm and then on Wall Street for 15 years. Yet she noticed that the moments that she was most excited and happy were when she was doing something with others, either as a mentee or mentor, or within the women's network. Second takeaway, listen to the messages coming to you. Ruchi noted the importance of working with a coach who encouraged her to step back, to not be in the day-to-day grind, and instead to really listen to the messages coming to her. As a result, she began to meet amazing, creative, talented women who started businesses but were overwhelmed by the numbers and could use her help. Third takeaway, recognize when fear is holding you back. Ruchi was able to take a sabbatical from her corporate job on Wall Street, during which time she tried cake decorating, floral decorating, and volunteered for a nonprofit. She enjoyed them all, yet after the sabbatical ended, she found herself back in her corporate position. She recognizes now how the underlying fear of change, of not knowing, held her back. And finally, if you try something different and it doesn't work, just keep trusting, and it's never too late for a change. Ruchi decided to transition to a position in human resources, thinking that it would satisfy her desire to help people. Instead, it was a terrible experience. She was miserable. Ruchi is now living her mission, providing financial mentorship to women business owners, although she didn't start this business until she was already in her 40s. Are you enjoying this podcast? Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss next week's episode. And if you love the show, a rating and a review would be greatly appreciated, and it will help other women just like you to find it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Making Change with Your Money. Certified financial planner Laura Rotter specializes in helping people just like you organize, clarify, and invest their money in order to support a life of purpose and meaning. Go to www.TrueAbundanceAdvisors.com/workbook for a free resource to help you on your journey. Disclaimer: Please remember that the information shared by this podcast does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, investment, or financial advice. It's for information purposes only. You should seek appropriate professional advice for your specific information.